Neighbor keeps harassing my mom over nothing. Now he reported our shed that's fully permitted. My mom's stressed, and I'm looking for advice. Hey Reddit, I'm writing this because I'm honestly at the end of my rope, and more importantly, my mom is starting to crack under the pressure. I'm hoping someone here has dealt with something similar or can give us some advice before this turns into something even more stressful. I, 29M, live with my mom, 62F, in a quiet suburban neighborhood in what's usually a peaceful part of town. We've lived here for about 8 years. It's just the two of us. My dad passed away several years ago, and I moved back in during the pandemic to help her out and never ended up leaving, and she doesn't mind. We get along well. Our house is modest, the yard is clean, and we keep to ourselves. My mom is one of those people who waves at every neighbor, offers to grab packages off porches if it starts raining, and bakes cookies around the holidays. She's just genuinely kind and non-confrontational to a fault. About 3 years ago, we got a new neighbor, let's call him Kevin, who bought the house next to us. At first, it seemed like things would be fine. He introduced himself politely, but he gave off those passive-aggressive HOA vibes from day one. You know the type, smiles to your face, but everything has an undercurrent of, I know best. No big deal at the time. We figured we'd just keep things cordial and mind our own business. But over the past 2 years, Kevin has become an absolute nightmare. It started with small, almost laughable things. He'd knock on our door to let us know our garbage cans were placed too close to the sidewalk, even though they weren't blocking anything. Then he started complaining about leaves from our old oak tree falling into his yard in autumn. I kid you not, he once stood in front of our house with a leaf blower pointed at the property line, trying to blow our leaves back where they came from. Still, we brushed it off. My mom would smile, apologize even when she had no reason to, and thank him for keeping us in the loop. She's just too nice for her own good sometimes. But Kevin escalated. He began calling the city on us over and over again. Bogus complaints like, unkept lawn, we mow it weekly, unauthorized parking, we have a second car in the driveway, legally parked, and once even claimed we had illegal gardening structures because we have 3 raised planter boxes for tomatoes and herbs. Each time, a city inspector would come out, look around, and basically roll their eyes as they closed the case. It was annoying, sure, but manageable. Then came the latest and most stressful issue. Kevin reported our shed. Now, we have a 10 by 12 shed in the backyard that we had professionally installed in 2022. We got the proper permits, had the required inspections, and even got approval from the city planning department because it's technically visible from the road behind our house. Everything was above board. We even have a file with the paperwork and receipts because my mom is very organized. Kevin filed a complaint that the shed was unpermitted and encroaching on property lines. The city contacted us again, and although the tone was polite, my mom was almost in tears by the time she hung up. She's terrified of dealing with officials, even when she's in the right, and this constant stream of harassment has her completely on edge. She's started worrying that she'll be fined or forced to tear it down, even though she knows we're in the clear. We're cooperating with the city inspector again, and we're pulling out the paperwork. But I'm done letting this guy cause her stress. She's losing sleep. She avoids going out into her own yard now. She jumps every time there's a knock at the door or an unfamiliar car pulls up. I've seen her sitting at the kitchen table with tears in her eyes because she doesn't know what she did to deserve being treated like this. The worst part is, we've never done anything to provoke him. We don't throw parties, don't play loud music, and we don't even interact with him unless he approaches us first. My mom offered him baked goods the first Christmas he moved in, and he just said, "I don't eat sugar," and shut the door. Okay, fine, but really? I've spoken to a few friends and done a bit of Googling, and I'm wondering if we might be dealing with a form of targeted harassment or if we have any legal recourse here. At what point does a stream of false or frivolous complaints become harassment in the eyes of the law? I'm not trying to sue the guy or anything. I just want him to stop. Thanks for reading if you made it this far. Seriously, any advice or support is appreciated. Update 1. 3 days later. Hey everyone, I just wanted to post an update to my original thread, linked below if you're new, where I talked about my mom being constantly harassed by our neighbor Kevin over bogus complaints. The latest being our backyard shed that's 100% permitted and legal. First of all, thank you. I didn't expect the post to get as much attention as it did, and I was genuinely moved by the advice, support, and stories from people who've dealt with similar nightmare neighbors. My mom even read through a few of the comments, the less angry ones LOL, and it meant a lot to her to know we're not alone in this. Here's what we've done so far. 1. Installed cameras. This was probably the most immediate step we took after reading dozens of your recommendations. We now have a doorbell cam. Finally, I don't know why we didn't get one sooner. And 2 weatherproof security cameras installed. One covering the driveway/front yard and another in the backyard facing the shed. Everything is motion activated, and we're storing footage both locally and in the cloud. If Kevin tries anything sketchy or comes onto our property again, we'll have it recorded. 2. Started documenting everything. I set up a shared Google Doc where I'm logging every interaction, complaint, inspection, or even just weird behavior. Dates, times, photos, what was said, and whether the city was involved, everything. I also scanned all the permits and related shed documents so they're easily accessible. Thanks to everyone who emphasized how important this would be. I feel like I'm building a legal case file, but at least we're protected. 3. Reading up on local ordinances and codes. I've started doing some light legal research, if you can call it that. The city's municipal code is available online, and I've been combing through the sections on property maintenance, nuisance complaints, setbacks, structures, noise, and even the complaint process itself. My plan is twofold. A. Make absolutely sure we're in compliance with everything, which we are, and B. Look for ways Kevin might be violating the same codes he's accusing us of breaking. Spoiler alert, I already found a few things. He has a short retaining wall in his front yard that looks suspiciously high compared to code limits. He also has outdoor lights that seem to violate the city's light pollution rules. They stay on all night and shine directly into our side windows. I haven't reported anything yet, but it's on the list. 4. Talking to neighbors. Here's something surprising. We're not the only ones fed up with Kevin. 2 neighbors down the street, one across the road, one catty corner, recently stopped to chat while I was working in the yard and asked how we were holding up. When I explained what's been going on, they both sighed and said some variation of, "Yup, sounds like Kevin." Turns out he's made complaints about dogs barking that weren't even real. The dog he blamed was at a boarding kennel that week, lawn watering schedules, and even a suspicious vehicle parked in front of his house. It was literally the UPS truck. One neighbor said he was reported for having a basketball hoop set up for his kids during the summer. So, yeah, it's not just us. He's that guy. The latest incident, of course, there's another. Just a few days ago, we got another visit from a city employee. This time, Kevin reported us for abandoned materials in the yard. What was the offending object, you ask? A bag of mulch, still sealed, sitting neatly next to our garden beds because I planned to use it the next morning. I genuinely thought the city guy was going to laugh. He looked around, saw nothing even remotely resembling trash or debris, and told us to have a great day. My mom offered him water. He politely declined, but smiled and said, "Some people just like to file reports." We didn't laugh until after he left, but it helped lighten the mood. Small confrontation. This part isn't my proudest moment, but it happened. I ran into Kevin while pulling out of the driveway a couple days ago. He flagged me down and said something like, "Glad to see you're finally taking care of that shed problem." I told him flatly, "There is no problem. It's fully permitted, and your complaints are wasting the city's time." He started going on about property values and how things should be maintained, and I told him to stop harassing my mom and to keep his nose on his side of the fence. He didn't like that, and walked away muttering something I couldn't hear. It wasn't a yelling match or anything, but it was tense, and it felt kind of good to finally say something. Next steps. I'm continuing to document everything. We're considering a consult with a local attorney just to explore options. If he files another obviously false complaint, we may file a formal harassment report with the city. There's a process, though it's a bit murky. I've also reached out to see if our neighborhood has a mediation or community officer program. I'm not optimistic that Kevin would participate, but it's worth knowing our options. Final update 3 weeks later. Hey Reddit, time for the final chapter in what I can only describe as the most exhausting yet oddly satisfying suburban saga I never expected to be part of. For those who haven't seen the earlier posts, here's a quick summary. My mom and I were being harassed by our neighbor Kevin, not his real name, but it fits, who spent the last couple of years filing bogus complaints against us for everything from our trash cans to our fully permitted backyard shed. We installed cameras, documented everything, talked to other neighbors who also had issues with him, and I started digging through our city's code to see if he was violating anything himself. Well, strap in, because karma decided to show up in steel-toe boots. What I did. A few weeks ago, after one too many ridiculous complaints, including a sealed bag of mulch being called abandoned trash, I'd had enough. I called the city inspector's office, not anonymously, and politely asked if they'd be willing to come by and take a look at a few things on Kevin's property that I believed might be out of code. A retaining wall in his front yard that looked taller than the city's 4-foot max limit without a permit. His outdoor floodlights, which shine directly into nearby homes all night, violating light pollution and nuisance lighting ordinances. And this one was more of a just-in-case, his inground pool. Now, I knew the pool had been there when he moved in, but I'd never seen any permits on record for maintenance or code upgrades, and our city has very strict pool fencing, drainage, and distance to property line requirements. It was a long shot, but I figured, why not? The inspector agreed to stop by the next week. What happened? The city inspector came out 2 days later. I didn't even need to follow up. He called me that evening. I assumed he'd just mentioned the retaining wall, which, yes, is too high and needs to be modified. But then he said this. "Hey, Just wanted to thank you for bringing this to our attention. You were right about the wall and the lighting, but the pool is the big one. Turns out Kevin's precious in-ground pool was built without any of the required modern safety features. No proper fencing, no zoning setback compliance, no drainage plan, and from the inspector's tone, he was not amused. The best part, the inspector told me that during his visit, Kevin tried to talk his way out of it. Apparently, once he realized how serious the pool violation was, he panicked. He begged the inspector to work something out, or give him time, or let it slide because it was there before. But the inspector wasn't having it. Here's what he actually said to Kevin. According to a neighbor who overheard it from across the fence, "I've been out here 4 times in the last few months for nonsense, complaints you've made about your neighbors. Maybe if you spent less time harassing them and more time checking your own property, you wouldn't be in this mess. Consider this your wake-up call to be a better neighbor." The fallout. Kevin now has 30 days to fill in the pool and bring the yard back to code or face escalating fines. The estimated cost, according to one of the contractors he got a quote from, over $25,000 for proper demolition, fill, and grading. And that's if he doesn't get fined further for non-compliance. Needless to say, the man is fuming. I've seen him pacing his backyard on the phone nearly every evening. He hasn't made eye contact with us once. The neighborhood? Oh, we're laughing hard. The same neighbors he complained about? They're all in a group text now. And someone literally sent a meme of a kiddie pool photoshopped into a crater with the words, "Kevin's Backyard Resort. Closed for business." Petty? Maybe. But after what he's put my mom through, it's hard not to enjoy the poetic justice. As for us, my mom is doing so much better. She smiled, actually smiled, when she heard the news. First time I've seen her genuinely relaxed about this situation in over a year. The cameras are staying up, and we're keeping our documentation going just in case, but I'm hopeful this really is the end of it. Maybe losing his precious pool and getting publicly told off by a city official will finally humble him. No more complaints. No more inspectors knocking. Just peace, a garden, and maybe a celebratory bonfire of mulch bags. Just kidding, we're composters.